So here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today. We'll take a look at some clips from the news, share a little bit of dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And if you are watching somewhere else and you would like to join the live portion, you can find us Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and Prepper University, as well as Rumble. You can find me on Rumble, and that is Coffee Talk 2, the number 2. Keeping in mind, of course, I cannot see the comments from Rumble. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta as we get ready to jump off here. As always, I do read through as many of the comments as is plausible for the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see. Being joined today by Granny Smith. For those of you who can see, there's Granny Smith sitting there watching me like she often does. At least she's not underfoot. She gets underfoot quite a bit because she's very quiet and you don't know she's there, and then you have practically step on her. Got to be real careful with her. I will go ahead and say hello to some of the people that have joined us for the live portion that have chosen to chime in so far. I see that Helter is there with us, as well as Bob. Says, saw the video on the Good Samaritan. Very interesting. Thank you, Bob. And for those of you who are not aware, on Coffee Talk earlier today, I put up a video explaining about the parable of the Good Samaritan. What is that? Luke 10:25 in better definition, because I brought it up on the podcast a couple of days back and some people asked me if I wouldn't mind elaborating. So I did a full video on that if anyone is interested to see it. I see Dragon is here, as well as Cyberjack Sr. Brian is here. Chris is here. And Caps is here. He says, I can tell this is going to be interesting. Saw the video. Oh, you did see that video as well. Thank you. All the help I can get. Please do take a look at the videos if you don't mind when I'm able to put them up. ScrewTube makes it very difficult. Obviously, they oppress the channel quite a bit. They give me strikes pretty much every day. And then, of course, they usually will overturn those strikes when I appeal. But by then, you know, anyone who might have seen the video has already looked at it. And that's the way they screw you out of the monetization. Monkey has joined us. Glad you could make it today. We get ready to jump off. I will be talking about Kamala Harris, but there's a couple of things I wanted to throw out there about Karen Bass first. That's in the mail. Jericho says, I don't know if it's just me, but the contrast is super bright. Just saying. Yeah, it's the lighting. Let's see if I can turn that out a little bit. That might help. I've got a lamp over there, and it might be facing the wall too much and causing reflection. Going to hit Karen Bass up here. Of course, Karen Bass, the mayor of Los Angeles, that unfortunately is indigenous of not just leadership in California, but leadership in many areas throughout the United States. We have read many stories on the podcast, many stories of corrupt politicians of all walks of life, from or all different levels of government, I should say, going from state representatives to mayors to aldermen to anything that you can think of, misappropriating funds, nepotism, stealing from charities, stealing from their campaign funds, all sorts of crazy things that they do, incompetence, failure to perform their duties, and so on. And Karen Bass is no exception here. And she's been in politics for a long time, since I believe at least 2006. She's been involved in politics. And JJ wants to call her Karen Basshole. You can call her that if you like. Brian says you should put the light under your chin and make the rest of the room dark. Oh, okay. Try to scare everybody. One of the things that has come to light recently is that Karen Bass had promised, and by the way, not that I'm for lack of looking, but the majority of the stories that I have read about corrupt government officials they're almost always a Democrat. Rarely have I found a story where it turns out it's a Republican. Not that Republicans are above reproach by any means, but for some reason, the Democrat Party seems to attract more corrupt people than does the Republican Party. So, what had come up recently is the fact that she had lied while running for mayor. She's a former, I believe, California state representative who ran for mayor and won the election in 2022. And one of her promises evidently was that under no circumstances would she leave the country. She would stay primarily in the Los Angeles area so that she could better represent her constituents. And if she did have to travel, maybe she'd go to DC, maybe she'd go to San Francisco, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what happened. When the fires broke out, she was in Guyana on the taxpayer dime. Taxpayers funded sending her to Guyana so that she could be there for some presidential inauguration. But it's not the first time that she's left the country after making that promise. Independent article here. Karen Bass once insisted she wouldn't go abroad as the LA mayor. Instead, she took 5 city-funded trips overseas. Taxpayers paid for her to leave the country 5 times since she took office so far. So she's never intended to keep that promise. It's just something cornered just recently at one of the press conferences where they asked her, hey, listen, promised you wouldn't leave the country. Fires broke out. You're in Guyana. Do you regret going? And she said no. She said, no, I don't. Okay, Karen. But into the article here. Karen Bass once promised she wouldn't go abroad as the mayor of Los Angeles, now as her city battles the worst wildfire in its history. She has 5 international trips under her belt during her term in office. The New York Times reports that Bass has taken 5 international city-funded trips since taking office, despite committing to stopping international travel in a 2021 interview as she was running for office. Quote, not only would I live here, of course, but I also would not travel internationally. The only places I would go would be DC, Sacramento, San Francisco, and New York in relation to Los Angeles. And she told that to the New York Times while she was running for office. Her travel abroad since becoming mayor included her recent trip to Ghana, where she was when the deadly Palisades and Eaton fires broke out Tuesday. She was there for the inauguration of the country's new president after Biden selected her as one of his 4-member presidential delegation to attend the event. Again, taxpayer funded. She could have said no. She could have said no. And the meat of this article is talking about David Blevins. And David Blevins is the Sky News reporter who cornered her at the airport, and she would not speak to him. She would not speak. And I see New York Patriot has joined us. Thanks for joining us today. But I want to see, I'm going to scroll down to where she took these trips. Okay. It says, in addition to the recent Guyana trip, the Times reports that Bass has also traveled to Paris 3 times. Oh, that must be nice. And once to Mexico for President Claudia Sheinbaum's inauguration. She also attended the Olympic Games in Paris. You paid for it too. That must be nice. Paris in the summertime. Although the Paris Olympics was a complete disaster. So there you go. And Peter says, a politician lying, say it is not so. I know, huh? It's hard to believe, isn't it? Especially Karen. She promised. She gave her word. She gave her word. And you know what? People believed her. Claypool believed her. Don't tell me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do. Show me what you're going to do. That's why you shouldn't make promises. If I was running for a political office, I wouldn't promise a damn thing. Hey, listen, I can't promise anything because you never know. I'll do my best. That's about all I can promise you. I'm not going to tell you I will or will not do this or that because you never know what's going to end up, how things are going to go, what's going to happen. JJ says, despite all the traveling, I'll bet she's a staunch climate change supporter. I'm sure she is, as well as an anti-gun supporter. She's big on anti-First Amendment, or Second Amendment, excuse me. She's big anti-2A. As I pointed out yesterday, though, in 2022, her home was burglarized, and among the list of things that were stolen from the property were firearms. So she's trying to take your rights away from you, but she wants to keep them herself. Paris, Mexico, and Guyana. Must be nice. Taxpayer funded. I want to take free trips. The only way I could take a free trip is if I won it in a game show. There's no way. And there's number one Marvel fan joining us today. We're not quite done picking on. Are we having scrolling problems? There we go. Restream acting funny again. We're not done picking on Los Angeles, though. Because while we've been kicking sand on the mayor, we may as well kick some on the deputy mayor. And Peter says they're all anti-1A and 2A. Yeah, indeed, they are. That's why Zuckerberg is getting a beat down now from all of these celebrities for walking back Meta's policies on fact-checking. And all he's doing is blowing in the wind. He sees the direction that things are going in the country, so he wants to be on the correct side of that. He's the T1000. Oh, no, he's the T800 now. See, the T200 series had rubber skin. You could spot them easily. The new 800 series has real skin overlay, bad breath, everything. Now that he no longer looks like Data from Star Trek, the lizard people are improving their disguises. Daily Mail article. Mayor Karen Bass's deputy, who oversees the Los Angeles Fire Department, is on administrative leave. The deputy mayor of Los Angeles, who oversees the city's fire department, was placed on administrative leave over an alleged bomb threat less than 3 weeks before the deadly wildfires erupted in LA. Deputy Mayor Brian Williams has been on administrative leave since the FBI raided his home in mid-December over bomb threats he allegedly made against City Hall in September. Oh, that's perfect. And by the way, he's also a Democrat. The Los Angeles Police Department investigated the threat after it was first reported and determined that Williams was the likely source of the threats. Williams was handpicked for the role as deputy by Mayor Karen Bass in February 2023 and given significant public safety responsibilities, including oversight of the city's fire and police departments. Due to his working relationship with the LAPD, the bomb threat investigation was handed over to the FBI, who then carried out searches of his home. The deputy mayor has not been arrested or charged with a crime, but still remains on leave. His attorney told the New York Post that he strongly maintains his innocence. Yo, I didn't do it. There he is. That's the deputy mayor. He swears he didn't do it, though. He promises. Jericho thinks that's amusing. New York Patriot says Adam Carolla has been the voice of reason. He lived around all these celebrities and basically told them, you voted for this. Peter says if Trump was pro-2A, then he would remove all regulations. No politician is pro-2A until the removal of all regulations. And in fairness, any law pertaining to possession of any type of weapon is a violation of the Second Amendment, period. even if it's in your favor. Where you know what I mean? Any law that they come out with can be considered a violation of the original intention. Marvel fan says is the LA government is just all sorts of screwed up. I know it. I love the bow tie on this guy though. Nice touch. And there's Karen Bass. She handpicked this guy and gave him a lot of responsibilities that she didn't want to have to deal with herself. And he can't conduct those responsibilities, not that he was anyways, because he's on administrative leave for threatening to blow up the Capitol building, or City Hall, rather. Agents searched Williams' home December 17th after an investigation allegedly determined he made the September bomb threats against City Hall. Bass, whose spokesperson claimed that she took the matter very seriously, quickly issued a statement after the raid by saying, quote, "My number one job is to keep Angelenos safe." Just Angelenos? Because, you know, that can be interpreted a few different ways. Just saying. I know that sometimes they refer to people who live in Los Angeles as Angelenos, but there's other terms that can be connected to. Marvel fan says never trust a guy wearing a bow tie. All right. D'Lo has joined us. And Brian says, sounds pretty professional for a mayor to say, yo, he would also make a good diplomat. Yo, I be innocent. I be innocent, yo. Trust me. Marvel fan says, the fire alarm guy wore a bow tie. They both look the same. The fire marshal of New York. Yeah. Here he is. Here he is at LA Fleet Week. Wearing, his bow tie is not even straight. It's all over the place. Dude, straighten that tie. Straighten that tie and either button both buttons or unbutton the top button because you're too fat for that jacket. That button is hanging on for dear life. That button has the strength of 10 men trying to keep that jacket girded to his belly. You see how the other guy, the jacket hangs straight down? That's because that jacket fits. And then Karen Bass wearing a suit that's way too long. It looks like she borrowed it from her older sister. The cuffs are on the floor, and she's probably wearing heels. I know I'm awful. I am awful. I get hung up on these pictures sometimes, though. Some of the photographs, I stare at them, and I just get more out of it than I should probably. See, now in this picture, that jacket fits better. Still wearing the same bow tie, different suit. Same bow tie, different suit, and no kerchief in the pocket. Don't you know how to flute a kerchief? I'm sorry, I'll stop. I can't help myself. Can't help myself. But as alluded to in the thumbnail, we may as well get on to Mrs. Word Salad herself. Mrs. Word Salad herself. And of course, I am talking about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris, everyone. I present to you Kamala Harris and her word salad. And this is going to be a Fox News article. And I actually have the video clip from this. I may play that here in a minute. Harris mocked for confusing word salad, telling LA wildfire victims it's critically important to be patient. Yeah, hurry up and wait. Vice President Harris was ripped online after she offered a confusing consolation for Californians besieged by ongoing fires on Monday. President Biden, Harris, and White House officials gave remarks during a briefing on the federal response to the wildfires across Los Angeles. Many people, including celebrities, have lost their homes. I know, and I shed a tear too, and I poured one out for the homies. In the Pacific Palisades area as wildfires continue to rage there and elsewhere in Los Angeles County, burning more than 27,000 acres, destroying over 10,000 structures, and killing at least 25 people, according to local officials. Harris argued that Amid all of this, her fellow Californians must remember that this is a time to be patient. You're going to have to be, because help is going to be slow in coming. Here's a quote, and I will try. Lots of people who still have a home, who are under evacuation order. I know you want to get back home, but this is a time to be patient, she said. There is still so much work that firefighters, police officers, FEMA, and others are doing that is about search and rescue, the work that still needs to be done to ensure the safety around utility lines. This work is still very much in progress. She then offered a confusing statement some would refer to as one of her trademark word salads, in telling those affected by the fires it's critically important that, to the extent you can find anything that gives you an ability to be patient in this extremely dangerous and unprecedented crisis, that you do. Wow, she sounds like Joe. Her statement was quickly skewed across social media, as is pretty much everything that this woman says at this point. And I do have the video clip, and I'll play that for you here in a moment. Monkey says, "Just be patient while the fire is ongoing." Peter says, "Why so many people in California don't have roof splinters?" Oh, you mean sprinklers? I don't know, because that is something that you could do, even if you don't have a roof sprinkler. If you have a garden sprinkler and a hose, you could put that up on your roof and turn it on during a fire. And Puck says Kamala is still collecting monthly campaign contributions. And then she's been told by her own party to stop that. They told her that a few weeks back. We read the articles. New York Patriot says that they even attempted to fill the reservoirs to put out any remaining fires. Not that I'm aware of. Not that I am aware of. But I do have that clip. I'll try to play it for you so you can hear it in her own words. In her own words, ladies and gentlemen. If you can stand the pain. If you can stand the pain. I'll go ahead and start this up, and I'll try to watch out for if they drop an ad in there. Let me see if I can get this going right. So this is her talking points, and I can tell you exactly what's wrong here. There's no teleprompter, and no prepared speech. Okay, she had some talking points, but doesn't know how to relay them. You know what I mean? Like, you can get away if you know what you're doing. You can have a card. People used to do that all the time when they gave speeches. They'd have those 3x5 index cards, and it would have just some bullet points on it. And they would read the bullet point and be like, okay, I'm going to talk about, and bullet point might have 3 or 4 words. Okay, yeah, this subject, this subject, this subject, gotcha. And they would just roll right off the top of their head. Trump does that. You see him do that all the time. She can't do it. So she had some bullet points, but no prepared speech and no teleprompter. So she tried to relay her thoughts, or, what she was told to think from off the bullet points, and can't really string it together in a way that anybody can understand it. Monkey says before hearing the video, I think she forgot to drink or is very buzzed. Yeah, I know. Well, there's a lot of speculation about that she could be a functional alcoholic. It's probable. It is. But here we go. Let me know if you can't hear the clip.
This is the time that everyone must be vigilant. Follow whatever orders you are receiving from your local authorities. If you are in any area where you may be called to evacuate, collect your belongings that you would want to take in the tragic event that you have to evacuate, and please be ready and prepared in that event. Lots of people who still have a home, who are under evacuation order.
Miss out on tax credits or deductions every year. Are you one of them? Get a free second look when you switch to H&R Block. We review the last 3 years of your returns and check for accuracy, missed credits and deductions, identity theft, and more. Switch to H&R Second Look Review.
Golly. Hold on a second.
Introducing
Here we go.
I want to get back home, but this is a time to be patient. There is still so much work that firefighters, police officers, FEMA, and others are doing that is about search and rescue. The work that still needs to be done to ensure the safety around utility lines. This work is still very much in progress, and so it's critically important that to the extent you can find anything that gives you an ability to be patient in this extremely dangerous and unprecedented crisis, that you do. This is the time that...
Yeah. Yeah, Jericho says stupid advertisements. Yeah, I know you can't get away from it anymore. And Frankie says she can't use bullet points. Remember, she's anti-gun. Oh, good point. Puck says Kamala is a lock for governor. That's how far gone California is. And Brian says, I wonder what these advertisers would say if someone could say to them, no one cares, I'm trying to watch a video. They don't care. They don't care what you think. They're going to push it right down your throat every opportunity they can get. They will make you watch that ad. They will make you watch that ad. I think they know most people don't pay attention. And Puck says, be patient for your one-time $770 payment. Ukraine gets same-day delivery. I know it. Billions and billions of dollars to the Ukraine. Meanwhile, California burns. And I'm just waiting for that San Andreas fault line to fall in. Lex Luthor tried. Superman screwed it up. But, oh my God. Yeah, she had some points that she was given, that she was trying to get across, couldn't do it. She's not capable of stringing all that together. Unfortunately, can't speak off the top of her head. Even a con man can speak off the top of their head. Hello, dear. I have a visitor. There's Granny Smith, everybody. Hi, darling. Where'd you come from? She crept up on me from across the room. She was sitting in the corner. And like I said, she's very quiet. So I looked down and there she was. Granny Smith, everyone. Hi, dear. Hello, dear. Staying out of trouble? I did a video on her on the cat channel yesterday. Was it yesterday or the day before? I did a video on her on the cat channel. Let me put you back down. Don't get stepped on. Anyways, again, she's just not capable. She's such an incredible puppet that she can't relay her own thoughts. She's got to be told what to say. Better yet, she's got to read it somewhere. She's got to read it. And that's unfortunate. Biden's the same way. Biden's been in politics for 50 years. It's got to be scrolling in front of him or he doesn't know what to do. Doesn't know what to say. He's like Ron Burgundy. If it's on that prompter, he'll read it. How many times have we seen where something went wrong with the prompter? I showcased a video on that with Kamala Harris like about a month ago, right? The prompter got stuck. And so she kept reading the last sentence over and over. She read it like 4 times until they got it fixed. That doesn't make any sense. How can you be that vacant in your mind that you're not able to speak off the top of your head? Hell, change the subject and talk just so that you don't look like an idiot. And Peter reminds us, don't forget those in Hawaii are still suffering, yet you don't hear about them in the media. No, you don't hear about North Carolina very much anymore either. And Caps says, how do you get into a political position where you can't think on your feet? When you're installed. And Puck says Kamala is an empty vessel, completely vacuous. And then Frankie said maybe the girl suing for not knowing how to read bases her story on Kamala. Yeah, and we read that story too a few weeks back, suing her high school because she's in college and she can't read. And it's like, you knew you couldn't read, honey. Not that they're going to make you read in college now either, but you knew you couldn't read. And then your family acts all surprised. Your mother's all surprised. Your mother lives there with you, doesn't she? If she was paying attention to you, she would have figured out that you couldn't read. She would have figured that out a long time ago. It's just as much, there's plenty of blame to go around. You can blame the public school system. It's a failure. But where were your parents? Some of the blame is theirs. Where were you? Some of the blame was yours. You're the one that chose not to follow that up, and then went your butt to college and was like, oh, wait a minute, I really don't know how to do this. Should have thought of that before. Should have thought of that. Didn't. But while we're in DC, we may as well look at some more sabotage. We got 5 days to go. 5 days to go. And Biden is still at it. New York Post article, Biden lifts the Cuba terrorism designation, drawing bipartisan outrage. Retiring President Biden lifted Cuba's designation as a state sponsor of terrorism Tuesday, less than a week before leaving office, outraging both Democrats and Republicans who believe more stringent sanctions should remain in effect. Biden made the decision in deference to the Catholic Church's talks with the island's communist authorities on releasing political prisoners, according to the White House. Quote, "We view this as an opportune moment to do so, given the important dialogue that is taking place between Cuba and the Catholic Church with respect to political prisoners," a Biden administration official has told reporters. "We believe that the number of people to be released will be significant." You don't know if anyone's being released or not just because the Pope went and talked with officials in Cuba. You don't know what the hell they're going to do. You're going to make a decision based on that? Well, I mean, he did just give the Presidential Medal of Freedom to the Pope, which the current Pope is probably the worst one that we've seen since World War II. But what do I know? What do I know? And everybody's pissed off. As they pointed out, there's bipartisan ire on this. Why did he do it? Well, it's going to cause more problems. The official added that we determined that there is a sufficient basis for the president to certify to Congress that Cuba has not provided any support for international terrorism during the preceding 6-month period, which is what the statutory requirement is for this decision. So they behaved themselves, so far as you know, for at least the last 6 months. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and lift that designation. We'll go ahead and do that. And then they go on to talk about what different senators had to say about that. I don't really care. We see what's going on here. It's not necessary for us to read everybody's take on it. It's pretty obvious that grumpy old Joe here, that picture right there says it all. That the attitude that is etched into that face says it all right there. You can't tell that guy nothing. But pure attitude. But this was just done to cause more sabotage, to derail what's going on, to make it more difficult for Trump to get anything done when he comes in. Did Trump do anything like this when he left office? I don't think he did. He didn't do a bunch of weird last-minute changes, did he? I don't think so. This is being done deliberately. All these things, we've been reading them for weeks. He's been doing it deliberately to screw up as many things as he can. And I had read somewhere a comment on a discussion on this particular topic. And someone had said in that comment section, well, what would you do? What do you expect if you were done dirty at your job and you were leaving? I'd go home. What am I going to sabotage it for and screw it up for other employees? Whatever he screws up, it's not about ultimately causing problems for the Trump administration. It's going to hurt all of us. That's the American people he's kicking in the teeth, not Donald Trump. Incredible. Peter says, how about the political prisoners in U.S. prisons? Nope, I don't know nothing about that. Just whatever the Pope said in Cuba and something to cause problems for Trump. Monkey says, at this point, Congress should pass something to speed up the process to inauguration so something like Biden doesn't go around, someone like Biden doesn't go around sabotaging the country. I wish they would. And JJ says, it seems it would be the current administration is attempting to derail the incoming administration with all these last-minute items. I think so. I think so. Monkey says, the things I've heard before Trump left was pardons, but that's all I can remember. Now, I don't think he really did a lot of shady last-minute things. No, I don't remember any. It doesn't mean it didn't happen, but I don't recall anything like that. I'm sure if he did, they would have been screaming about it in the media at the time. They would have been absolutely screaming about it. Oh, God, Trump, he's a monster. Frankie says, give him a backhanded pimp slap and watch Biden change his tune. Old Joe? You don't want him to take you out behind the woodshed, would you? Don't you remember when he was running for president and he threatened that oil worker? Maybe you'd like to step outside. Who remembers that video clip? That alone should have been enough for him not to get elected. You're damn near 80 years old and you're challenging some guy to fisticuffs in the back alley? He must think very highly of himself. Incredible. Puck says Joe has a lot more free time on his hands since Visiting Angels dropped him as a client. And Brian says, I remember in your very first video, you said how people don't care who they hurt as long as they get what they want. That's true. Or as Sun Tzu said, and I'm paraphrasing, there are some leaders who will burn down their own country to rule over the ashes. Or more so in this case, if I can't have it, nobody can. That's the current attitude right now. If I can't have it, nobody can. That's Joe's attitude. Meanwhile, everyone else in Washington is trying to walk everything back. A lot of changes are being made. And Trump had over. This is an Axios article coming up here. This is a top news story. House passes bill restricting trans participation in sports. There you go. House voted Tuesday to pass legislation restricting trans women from participating in women's school athletic programs. The 3-page Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act, introduced by Representative Greg Stebu, would prohibit any athletic programs that receive federal funds, public schools primarily, from allowing transmogrified women to participate in women's sports. It directs the Government Accountability Office to conduct a study into the benefits to women or girls of participating in single-sex sports that would be lost by allowing males to participate. And the bill passed along party lines. Now all of a sudden, because if it passed along party lines, then people that were for this are now suddenly against it. JJ says scorched earth. Yeah, something like that. Scorched earth. I don't know if I can read that, Puck. I'll put that up there for a second. He didn't used to do that because he was too busy having little black children rub his hairy legs. That should have been enough for him not to get elected. Because they're the ones that taught him about roaches. Didn't he say that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable that he got elected. That's why it's so hard to believe. It's so hard to believe. And that's the reason why there are so many that think that something fishy happened in the previous election. 81 million votes from Mr. Little Kids Rub My Hairy Legs. Threatening to beat people up in the alley. Indeed. But yeah, they've walked this back. They're now passed. They've just passed a bill. Prohibiting this. It's about damn time. And Tuck is here. Glad you could make it. He says here and not here. That's all right. That's all right. Also top in the news while we're talking about walking things back. This one's a big shocker, but maybe not. ABC News article. The FDA bans the use of red number 3 in food and drinks. Food and drinks bans red number 3. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration is moving to ban the use of red number 3 dye in food products. The agency said Wednesday it is amending its color additive regulations to no longer allow the use of red number 3 in food and ingested drugs in response to a 2022 petition from health groups and activists. FD&C red number 3, also known as red number 3, is a synthetic food dye that gives food and drinks a bright cherry red color. It is primarily used in foods such as candy, cakes, cupcakes, cookies, frozen desserts, frostings, icings, and some ingested drugs. But that stuff's in everything. You can probably turn over. I mean, you know how much stuff has food coloring in it. At least 2 studies have shown that high levels of the food dye were linked to cancer in rats. However, the link between the dye and cancer does not occur in humans, according to the FDA. But now you're still banning it. I'm sure it has nothing to do with RFK Jr. coming in as a health official. I'm sure it's got nothing to do with that, since this petition was given to the FDA, more than 2 years ago? Now you want to do something about it. People have been complaining about food coloring, especially red food coloring, for decades, because it's also been linked to ADHD and other types of diseases that you see with young people today, Asperger's and all kinds of weird stuff. Suddenly you want to do something about it. We're like, the last country on earth that still uses these dyes? And JJ says wasn't red 40 banned a long time ago. I mean, think about it. This is why you don't have colored toilet paper anymore. You remember once, some of you might be old enough to remember when toilet paper came in different colors to match the ambiance in your bathroom. You could get pink, red, blue, green, yellow toilet paper, whatever. And they banned it because people were getting cancer from it. And it used the same dye process. Incredible. Puck says that stuff is derived from petroleum. Can't imagine why it would be good for you. It's not. It's not. But we've talked about this before, that there are some 10,000 plus additives allowed in food by the Food and Drug Administration that are not natural compounds, like the dyes. Like the dyes. And the next country that's like number 2 on the list, I think, is the UK, with about 300 additives. How do we go from 300 to 10,000? What are they trying to do to us? This can be done safely. Hell, you don't really even need the color. I don't give a shit what color the food is. I don't care. I don't need it to be red. I don't need it to be blue. I don't want to eat anything that's blue, actually. Play-Doh is blue. You want to eat Play-Doh? Jericho says that's crazy. These people are literally killing us. That's the real Holocaust. It's poison. It's poisoning your system. And Cray says they could extract color from beets, pomegranates, and red potatoes. That's what they do in other countries. That's what they do in other countries. You don't need to use a petroleum compound. You know how hard that is on your liver to work out? How long it takes for your liver to get that? You imagine these people who eat, I mean, people mostly in the West make really poor dietary decisions anyways. All they're doing is killing themselves faster. Incredible. And Puck wants to get rid of high fructose corn syrup as well, which I'm all for that. I've mentioned before in college I did a paper on it. Actually, I did I had to do a speech on corn syrup at that time, which is why I did that. I wrote a long essay about corn syrup, and that's where you found obesity. Go watch any video clips from the mid 70s back. Everybody's thin. It's not because of the cocaine. Something changed in the American diet collectively. And it coincides right with when corn syrup was introduced into the food chain. Suddenly, we go from everybody being as thin as the Bee Gees to a bunch of whales walking around out here. Someone being even 300 pounds was almost unheard of in the 70s. You saw someone like that in the street, you're like, my God, what happened to that guy? Half the people I see in the street now are like 300 pounds. It's not unheard of for people to be damn near 1,000 pounds. You watch My 600-Pound Life. I don't know why they call it My 600-Pound Life. Probably because everybody on the show is over 600 pounds. Brian says your body has to work extra hard to get rid of chemicals and food coloring. That is true. And JJ says he remembers colored toilet paper, didn't know it was giving people cancer. Yeah, look it up. Look it up. That's why it was taken off the market. That's why it was taken off of the market. Jericho says, I had a teacher in school stressed to the autistic Mexican girls on the massive consumption of Big Red and Flamin' Hot Cheetos. Did you? They all looked at him like he was wearing a tinfoil hat. You know what I always thought was funny was because I saw a lot of people eating the Flaming Hot. Those are the red ones, right? With all that nasty powder on them. We used to have to wear masks at Frito-Lay when they made that stuff. If they were going to run it in extruding, they would warn everybody to wear extra masks because we all had to wear a mask on over our mouth anyways. But they would warn us to. Oh no, we didn't. Wait a minute. It depended on your department. You had to wear a hairnet and or a beard net. If you had facial hair, you had to wear a beard net. They had like a standard mask, but that was typically optional. You had to wear goggles and hearing protection, but the mask was optional. But if they ran the Flamin' Hot, you had to wear your mask because it would make everybody sick. And I remember when I worked for JJA, the kids at the facility, they always wanted to eat that stuff, but then they would gag on it. They would gag on it. They couldn't get it down. It's like, why are you choking yourself to death with that shit? It's obviously not even good. It's also not even good. But this doesn't surprise me that suddenly they want to get on that bandwagon with RFK Jr. coming in because he's big on this kind of stuff. He has a big pet peeve with artificial products in the food chain, and I'm for that. I'm very much for that. And Frankie says, very popular back then to eat Flaming Hots with pickle juice. Ugh. Well, you know what it is with the pickle juice? It's alum, because that's how they make the pickles. That's alum that's in the water, and that's not good for you either. It's not good for you either, and it's illegal to use it in a daycare. It's illegal to use alum in a daycare because it causes if you use the alum directly, not just pickle water, but if you use alum directly, um, it causes, especially in younger people, involuntary sucking. And a trick that they used to do in daycares way back in the day is put alum in the mouths of babies and then stick a pacifier in their mouth to shut them up. So it is illegal. It is illegal. Brian says the people who tell these people that it's no big deal if they're obese, they should pay their hospital bills later. It is a big deal. And they're unhappy, and they're unhappy as well as unhealthy, but they don't want to change their behavior. They don't want to change their behavior. And that's one of the biggest parts of the problems is people's inability or unwillingness to alter their behavior. They say it's too hard. It really isn't. It really isn't. All you have to do is actually be willing to stop. And I've talked about that a lot in the past, discussing drug rehabilitation, because I have had to work with drug rehabilitation clinics when I was with the Juvenile Justice Authority. And you've got people who have been in rehab dozens of times. Dozens of times. It's not unheard of for someone to be in rehab 20, 28, 30, 40 times and keep ending up going back because they're being forced to go back. And as long as they're being forced and they don't really care, they're not going to change. When they make the change is when they decide they've had enough. If it doesn't kill them first, or they don't end up in prison. And they sit there and say, you know what, I can't live like this anymore. That's when it stops. That person goes cold turkey, and then they're fine. They adjust. They adjust. Steve Tyler's got a great story about it from Aerosmith. He decided to go cold turkey because he had such a huge drug problem, massive drug problem, and he was extremely sick as a result of it, and then never used again. And then, they asked him about his craving. He says, yeah, I still crave it all the time, but I'm not going to do it. So they have to want it. You can't really force them. Keep throwing them. Everybody who's in drug rehab, they were pretty much forced to go in one form or another. They're not going to change until they want to, or until it kills them. Jericho says they want to do a pill for everything. Everybody wants the shortcut. Everybody wants to take a pill, and that's what it is, path of least resistance. But it doesn't work that way in real life. Change is hard. Change is hard. Change requires some form of sacrifice, and you have to be willing. You have to be careful. You have to be willing to do that. You have to be willing to make that sacrifice, make that change. You have to be willing to suck it up. If you're being forced to, it's not quite the same thing. And then you're just going to go back to it. And I've seen some of the worst of the worst of the worst. And I've told the story before about one of my clients from when I was with Juvenile Justice, that she did not have a mother. Her mother was already deceased, and her father was killed in a tornado in Missouri. Was it Missouri? I think it was in Missouri. He was killed in a tornado, and she got special permission through her probation officer to go on a bereavement leave. So they would transport her back home, and her aunt or whoever, I forget who received her, so that she could attend the funeral. Okay, they gave her, we'll give you a couple of days. We'll take you out of the facility. We'll send you home. The transporter hadn't even left the house and she already escaped. And she had been in the system for like months. She had already been in juvenile in the correctional facility. I want to say almost 8 months. So basically in jail, juvenile detention. Transferred to my facility. She was there for 2 or 3 months, maybe. And transporter picks her up, takes her to the family. Girl's out of the bedroom window and down the street and gone. And they find her a couple of weeks later in a crack house somewhere. Because all that time that she was clean, because she had no choice, because she was locked up, first opportunity, obviously didn't go to her father's funeral, claims to regret that after the fact, but did she? Did she? She didn't want to change. Nature Nerd says drug addicts never listen. Then shit hits the fan for them over and over again. Adrenaline junkies, perhaps. And Brian says some people also make the genetics being able to tolerate bad foods, drinking, and smoking argument, which I think is complete nonsense. They're just lazy people making excuses. Well, no, you build up a tolerance. You build up a tolerance over time, but that's not necessarily healthy at all. Just because you can take it, there's a limit. And then one day that system collapses on you. One day that system just collapses on you and it'll kill you. Nature Nerd says druggies are also nerds that do the research so they can often know the bad stuff that will happen to them and those around them, which makes it so much worse. Well, especially if they're going to any type of a rehab situation, then they are instructed in great detail what their actions will do, what the long-term effects on their body is. They know what it's doing to them. They know what their behaviors are doing to other people because they're being taught in these rehabs all the time. They know exactly. They can teach rehab. They just don't care. Until, hopefully, one day, the bulb comes on and they're like, poof, yeah, I can't do this. I can't do this. This needs to change. I'm going to kill myself. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have said that because now ScrewTube is going to get me. Oh, no. Because, the ScrewTube algorithm misinterprets what you say often. And I was already put on a watch list for reading an article some months ago. You can't talk about anything on these channels anymore. It's insane. Which I had brought up earlier when I first started today's podcast, because the strikes every day, it's absolutely maddening. They sabotage the channel. It creates a domino effect. They restrict access, but then the less that your channel is seen, the less they'll present it to anyone. And it gets worse and worse. But not only are they cheating their so-called content creators, but they're cheating the viewers as well, because there are people that might enjoy your video that will never find it, never see it, because they're not being allowed to, because the viewing audience is being treated by ScrewTube as if they are like a bunch of 5-year-olds who can't make decisions for themselves on account of a handful, a fringe minority of so-called activists pretending like they can't make those decisions. Jericho says, yeah, that was a bad slip. Yeah, hopefully we'll be okay. I will let you know if there is a problem. And Brian made a donation to the channel. Thank you, Brian. Again, goes a long way towards helping out. Always appreciated, especially where our felines are concerned, because that's primarily where any donations go, is to taking care of our shelter cats. And with that, we are at the top of the hour, so I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you are listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube, on Coffee Talk, and Prepper University. You can find me now on Rumble and that is Coffee Talk 2, the number 2. Although, again, I cannot see the comments from Rumble. I can only see comments coming in from YouTube. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. So thank you, everybody, for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation. And we will catch you again tomorrow.